Greetings, everyone. This is Jeff Wilkerson, professor of physics at Luther College, bringing you our weekly update for what to look for in the night sky. This time we're talking about the week of December 20th, 2021. So, a lot of things we could talk about here this week, and we're going to pick a few of them out, and we're going to give you a long-term observing project like we like to do. Sometimes we like for you just to watch things over the course of time. We're going to do that with sunset. I think we probably did this last year. You should probably, I have no idea why, if you've been watching the videos, and I'm sure you have, if you've just joined us recently and started watching these weekly sky updates, the first thing you probably did was go back and watch all of them with a bucket of popcorn, and maybe twice or three times, of course. But if you went back and looked at last year at this time, we probably talked about something similar here. And so for this first bit that we're going to talk about, and that is what we didn't talk about last week. Last week we talked about Gemini, and we're going to come back to Gemini here a little bit. But what we didn't talk about last week was on Thursday. That would be Thursday the 9th. So that's actually 2 weeks ago now. Thursday the 9th. For us here, and probably for you, it depends a little bit on where you are, but certainly for the mid-northern latitude folks like myself, we had our earliest sunset of the year. So I like to mark winter and spring, the passage of the seasons, a lot of different ways. So in terms of evening daylight, in terms of sunset, December 9th was the earliest sunset. That was midwinter for us. And so we're past midwinter in terms of sunset time, and the sunsets have been getting later and later and later. Now it's a sinusoid type curve. That is to say, if you plotted sunset time as a function of time, it would look something like that. And so we're right down here, and it's not changing much. It's right where the sinusoid changes very slowly. Out in here, so there's a way to mark the seasons right there. Where something is changing slowly, that's what you call summer or winter. Summer, winter. Where things are changing rapidly, that's what we call spring or fall. Okay, and so we haven't transitioned. We're still changing very slowly, but nonetheless we're changing, and the sunsets are getting later again for us. And we're still getting later sunrises, so the days are still getting short. And the reason we're thinking about this week is because we've got right here on the 21st, we got our shortest day of the year, and so that's, even though the sunset's grown just a little bit later, the sunrise has grown even more later, and now the days are going to start getting longer, and then in a few weeks, the sunrises will start getting earlier, and then the days will start getting longer faster, and then in terms of photo period, in terms of total daylight, we'll slip onto the fast part of this curve, and it'll be spring. So anyway, there's a lot of different ways you can measure this: temperature, sunset, sunrise, total sunlight. But anyway, we passed midwinter in terms of sunset time, and I thought I'd try to show you this idea of sidereal and solar days we've talked about before. I have a whole videos out there. I have a few videos talking about that that you could look up. But to say, if we draw that arrow at the sun, we orbit over here, and we're rotating in the same direction that we're orbiting, in the same sense of orbital and rotational angular momentum, if you will, pointed out on the board in this case. We get around here, and I've exaggerated this, we only go about a degree in a day, but you get around here, and we're pointed back up at the stars. It takes us extra time to rotate over here. It takes about 4 minutes to rotate that extra degree. You go and do the calculations. I've got videos where I do them for you, but you can see what that is. But the trick here is we're closer to the sun than we are at other times of the year. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be at our closest point to the sun. And so since we're closer to the sun, we're actually moving faster. So we have to rotate a little more than average to catch up. That pushes sunrise and sunset both later because it takes us longer to rotate the sun back into position. So you could envision this geometry, practice it, draw it, see it, do it, practice this geometry, and say, okay, the further you go around here, the more you got to rotate over to get the sun back to the same spot in the sky, be it noon, be it sunrise, be it sunset. And so it just takes a little longer to get there. And that's where we are right now because we're moving a little faster than normal. In summer, for us in mid-northern latitudes, we'll be on the other side of this orbit. We'll be moving more slowly than average. It'll take less time, and we'll have the opposite be true. So things will still be getting earlier once we've, sunrise will be getting earlier and sunset will be getting earlier. So sunset will turn over that way out here. So anyway, but we can talk about that at that time. Picture this geometry and think about that, but watch over the next few weeks to see if you can see the sunset getting earlier. It takes a little bit of effort right now because we're on this slow part of this sinusoid, but in a week or two, you might really start to notice that the sunset is getting later if you're paying attention to it. If you're here, in mid-northern latitudes where I am. And so you might notice that it's worth doing it. I think it's a fun thing for me to do. So it's one way to keep the seasons rolling along. If winter's hard, which isn't so far this year for us, it's a way to think about, wow, we're already moving towards spring by one marker, and then the next marker, and then the next marker. So that's a good project for you. Watch sunset over the next few weeks and see if you can see it getting later. Last week, we talked about Gemini because we talked about the Geminid Meteors. We gave you a few things in Gemini to look at. We got bright stars, Castor and Pollux, and then we've got the sort of strands of stars down this way that make up Gemini. So Gemini looks something like that. This strand of star points more or less towards Betelgeuse. We identified Wasat and Alhena last week, and hopefully you've had a chance to go out and look at those stars. One thing to think about with the sun, as we're thinking about sunrise and sunset, the sun is very low in the sky for us now in northern latitudes. And so it's about as low as it gets. It's in the constellation Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a zodiacal constellation that doesn't get very far above our horizon because the sun doesn't get very far above our horizon when it's there. If you look in the opposite direction, we're going to see our constellations of the zodiac that are highest in the sky, and that's Gemini and Taurus. So here where Gemini meets Taurus is really the highest part of the zodiac for us. And so these constellations are high in the sky and relatively easy to observe. Scorpius and Sagittarius, not so much where the sun is right now. In the summertime, they'll be up at their maximum height, but they'll be pretty hard to see for those of you who live further and further and further north. Anyway, so we can turn our attention back to Gemini and think about that too. Think about the fact that the sun's low in the sky over here, so opposite of where it is going to be high in the sky over here in the summertime, and then it'll be in the constellations of Gemini and Taurus. But also on the 21st, that's Tuesday, the 21st in the evening, the nearly full moon is very close to Pollux. It's within a few degrees. It's about 3 or 4 degrees along, it's between Pollux and Wasat here. And so it'll be great to watch the moon. Two really bright stars, Castor and Pollux, hold up to the full moon really well. So go out on the 21st, observe the moon with Castor and Pollux. If it's clear, I'll see if I can get a picture of it and tweet a picture out for you to see the moon next to those stars and see what we can do. The moon's that bright actually washes out the image that I'm trying to take, so it's a little bit of a struggle. With all I do is take my cell phone, right? I don't have a better camera. So I'm just doing that when I'm walking around. We'll see if we can get that for you, though. Then 3 days later, on the 24th, on Friday, then you've got the moon has moved. It's waning, so it's a little bit less full, and it's moved, and it's in the constellation Leo. And Regulus is the bright star here, and it's about 5 degrees north or northeast of Regulus there. And so that's half a fist width. So it's pretty close to the bright star Regulus. And we often think of the head of Leo as a sickle shape, a backward question mark. And Eta is that star right here in Leo, and the moon is right next to Eta. Eta's not as bright, but it's not faint either. So see if you can pull Eta out of there. A pair of binoculars might be great to look at that pair of objects, the moon and Eta Leonis, on the 24th. So the moon's waning, it's moving across, moving from Gemini through Cancer into Leo, and then you can start to do this thing that we're thinking about where the zodiacal constellations are and see that Leo is not going to get as high in the sky as Gemini and Taurus are, and so you can get that sense as we move along. So that's what we got for you. Watch the sunsets getting later. Look for the moon making a great view with Castor and Pollux early in the week, and then late in the week, look for it in the sickle of Leo, pretty close to the bright star Regulus. And I hope you have a great week, everybody. We'll have something new for you next week. I think we'll have another long-term observing project for you to start, maybe. I've been looking at it, thought about doing it this week. I think next week's better. So hang on for that. You're going to enjoy it. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you later.